can get you designing a logo for your podcast, just an icon or an icon with a typeface. The logo should be a natural evolution of your brand.
How good are my visual design skills? I've done the website, workexperiencekit.com. That's all me. Also, all the artwork that goes with the pod. For me, I think they're okay. I know that they could be way better. This is a trial to see if I can create a logo that goes alongside all the artwork you see with the podcast. Will I be able to design a logo, and will Bryan give me a job out of it? Before we get into the trial, remember workexperiencekit.com is where you can find everything about the pod. You can get involved, you can support it. You can also contact previous guests on the pod. Just look for the guests tab and find the person's name there. And remember, if you like the pod, please give it a 5-star review, nothing else, and make sure you share it with friends and family as well so we can help more people find a new career. Is my career going to be in visual design? I've popped into Bryan's home studio and speaking a little quietly because he's got a newborn there as well. Bryan sent me the challenge to create a logo for the Work Experience Kid podcast, asking me to use existing colors and the existing feel of the podcast tile that you see when you listen to the podcast. And I have absolutely no idea where to start. Bryan, firstly, maybe you can tell us what a good job might look like.
So your podcast tile could consist of a graphical element made up of a logo and some type or a typeface with your Work Experience Kid type. Ideally, you'd use some of your existing colors from your color palette you've got running already, and yeah.
The colors I've got here, I found a blue that I liked. I don't know why I liked it. I just went onto the, when you look at a color palette and it's just like, you reds through to purples and then like, oh, it's a blue. I'll just pick that. And I think it looks okay. It looks kind of corporate-y, which I don't necessarily want it to be, but that's just what happened. And then I put it into ChatGPT and said, give me some complementary colors. So that's why you can see the white is not necessarily a white, slight gray to it. There is some gold, which to me looks a little bit like it's a telecommunications company award night, but hey, that's what it spat out. And on the website, there's an orange, which is used as a highlight. So there was really no thought there, but I used ChatGPT for it. Now, to extend this artwork into a logo, I have absolutely no idea where to start. So I thought I'd come to your studio and see where you might start where it comes to creating a logo. So if I was to commission you to do a logo, what would you do first?
So the process would start with a concept phase where you'd come up with some ideas and, sort of trial a few different bits and pieces of your logo element, something related to your podcast. So say something like a microphone or a briefcase. And then from there, using your nice royal blue color, play around with some different looks and feels and styles and see what you sort of like from there. The other thing is you can jump on and do an image search and type in some keywords and come up with a style you sort of like and get the ball rolling.
Where would you get inspo from if you're doing this? Would you go on Google Images?
Google Images is an easy sort of start, but you can sort of dive deeper into some design websites. Like there's one called Dribbble. That's Dribbble with the 3 B's in there. There's some nice designs on there and people submit their designs and there's some cool stuff on there for inspiration. Or looking at logo specific, there's a website called logopon.com. There's some really nice elements there.
Looking at Google Images, I've typed in Work Experience Kid and we've got a Utopia episode thumbnail, which they must have had an episode with a Work Experience Kid in there. You've got Children at Work, which obviously promotes slave labor, which is not what we're doing here. And there's nothing really inspirational for when it comes to this pod. You've got a man carrying a serving tray with 5 or 6 jugs on it. Again, that's not really helping with this podcast. I did have the thought of, say, like a briefcase or a tie or something kind of maybe school-ish / work-ish, but I thought they were a little bit cheesy. So in my own mind, when I was sitting down at home before asking for your further help, I was like, this is cheesy. How can you make this not cheesy? I imagine you have a whole lot of cheesy ideas. How do you make them not cheesy?
Oh, yeah, it comes down to the research. As I said, finding the right website with the right, using the right keywords. So you mentioned Work Experience Kid, the image search on Google is just too broad. So finding the right website. Another good example would be the Noun Project. They do some really nice icons on there and there's so many different submitted icons on there. That's probably a good start. Use your keywords, your work experience and sort of whittle it down a little bit.
Okay, so on the noun project, we've just typed in work experience, and it is coming up with briefcases and like documents, kind of look like clip art-ish icons, but it's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start to sort of get some ideas going around in your head.
Okay, cool. This still doesn't help me. So when you have a bit of a creative block, what next?
Just got to broaden your horizons. I suppose these days you could rely on things like AI to get some ideas floating around, or you've just got to research, even going for a walk and seeing what's out there or finding other avenues for research. It's just, you could spend hours looking for some inspiration and finding the right website.
Maybe we can implement something that you mentioned in your interview episode with AI being a thing. Perhaps we can see what AI has got to say from an initial ideation point of view.
Let's give it a crack.
Brian's whipped up a quick prompt. It says, create me a logo for a podcast series. It's titled Work Experience Kid. Attached is an image of the color palette I want to use. Include a graphical element that relates to podcasting or work experience. And we've attached the Work Experience Kid title tile. And while that is generating its image, because it's taking a little while, Brian, I just want to ask you a little bit more about doing your job. We've got you down as a visual design unicorn, but even just some visual design in general. Right now on a job advertising platform that I won't mention unless they sponsor the pod, there are 134 jobs for multimedia designer, 3,400 digital designer jobs, and 184 motion designer Australia-wide. Motion designer is more where you are now. In your previous episode, you mentioned that to get a job, you really just need a strong folio. Additional education helps. How does one get one of these jobs?
Well, building up that strong folio is a key element to that, but also networking, finding the right people, whether it's attending seminars or design catch-ups and stuff like that. Just speaking to the right people also helps.
We've heard a lot from people about building a network and leveraging those people in the network. So that's some good advice that we're seeing across the board. So right now, I'm not in the industry. Depending on how this trial goes, we're still waiting for ChatGPT to generate this image. So it's possible for somebody who's not in the industry to get a job provided they have the skills, the knowledge, the folio, etc. Do you have any advice that might help somebody who's trying to get into the industry, maybe starting out fresh?
Some advice would be to step outside your comfort zone, especially when it comes to your design. When you come up with a design, it'd be good to look at it from a different perspective or get feedback from another angle, because that can always strengthen the look of your design.
Now, has ChatGPT finished its thing? I can only imagine how much energy we're wasting, how many trees have been burned. Here we go. It's popped up now. Now, to be honest, Brian, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by what it's spat out. It's taken probably 10 minutes, felt like an hour, to spit this out. I want to hear your thoughts before I say anything else.
Yeah, look, to be honest, it's as expected. What I expected, really. It's quite basic, quite average. But I think the AI has taken the prompt I've put in too literally, and it's not that great.
What we've got here is the words Work Experience Kid. That's great. It's using a different font though, which is not amazing. If you look at the tile, it has, that blue stripe with Iain Duguid on there. Okay, so it's done nothing there. We wanted a logo, and what it's done is it's moved the words Work Experience Kid from more of a center spot, more up. It's left that blue stripe exactly where it is. It's added a microphone and a briefcase outline, clip art style, and they've just put it together. I'm not happy with this, and I can see why, Brian, you exist in the world, because AI is definitely not there yet.
AI is definitely a long way off. I'm not an AI expert, and my prompt was probably pretty average, so it's probably done an okay job considering my prompt, but this is not what we're after.
I'm actually not very happy with it, so I'm glad I'm not paying for ChatGPT. Brian, we're in a situation where AI hasn't given us much. Google Images hasn't given us much. What are you doing in this situation now?
So I've just jumped on a design website here and put in a keyword of podcast logo and work experience logos, and we're getting some mixed results. Nothing helping us at the moment. With a few more searches we might come across something, or maybe even altering our AI prompts, we could narrow it down. But at the moment, we're not really getting anything that's fitting the bill.
And because this is a trial for me to design a logo to, I guess, address the challenge that you set in the last episode, I'm finding it very difficult. Now, I know that a lot of people out there are very visually minded. You're one of them. I don't think this is a career for me. I don't think I can do this job.
Maybe not. Like, it takes years to sort of develop that design eye, and you're always doing research, whether you're conscious of it or not. All these websites you're looking at day to day, you're constantly, saving things into an inspiration folder. You can come back to it at a later date, which might be not related to a project you're currently working on, but it might be helpful in the future. But I suppose it takes years and years of experience to come up with that creative pop.
So when somebody asks you for a logo, I've heard this a lot. A company goes, or someone who runs a business says, can you just design me a logo? Is this what you're feeling some of the time?
Yes and no. It depends on the client. Some clients come to us or come to me and they've got a pretty definitive idea, whether they've got their own research is saved, they've done their own Google searches or image searches and come up with a style. They can come to me and say, look, I like this style. I want something similar to this. And it definitely narrows the direction from there. But I've had people come to me and say, I want a logo, design me a logo with no brief. And it's like, well, how long's a piece of string really? And I've had to come up with things, and you can go around in circles, 10 rounds of design and not come up with something they like. So it's good to know what you want.
And I imagine quite often it's a case of the client doesn't know what they want. They want you to show them a various range of ideas, which is what you said in the last episode. Concepting is maybe where you use your AI to sort of nut out what works, what doesn't work, and then you can spend time on it. Since being a visual designer is clearly not for me, but to help anyone else who is wanting to become one, or maybe has the skills and wants to take the next step, is there anyone that you follow that potentially helps you out, but also that could help out other people?
There's a lot of resources out there in terms of people to follow. A good one would be Instagram. There's a lot of things on there. There's a lot of people. I follow so many people that it's hard to sort of, name a few good ones.
I have seen a couple of designers as well who are like, hey, this is how I design a logo. And they're like, using, say it's a word, and then they have a logo, and the logo is a certain size based on the size of the word. It's just finding somebody who is providing advice at your level.
Yeah, definitely. And everyone's also got their own style. So, one person I might follow, you might not like their style of design. There are so many resources out there. It's just good to look at a lot of different styles, because you might be inspired by something in a style you've never worked with before.
We're talking about doing a logo here for my own thing. If you were doing some work for one of the companies that is under the umbrella of your agency. So you're at work, one of those companies has come to you and said, can you redesign our logo? Or it's a new company, can you design a logo from scratch?
If I was creating a logo at work, I'd be working with a creative team, usually made up of an art director and a copywriter, but a copywriter's more not really related to this side of the project. They'd come to me with a style, and I would come up with a few different options to send back to them, and we'd sort of sit down and nut it out. Might even get the creative director involved, and they'd have some ideas and sort of shape and sculpt the logo into something we could present to the client.
So it's becoming that collaboration that you mentioned earlier. Maybe the art director or creative director says, hey, move that element 2 pixels to the left, and okay, that's great. Or this would be nicer if it was a pink and not a red.
Yeah, and creative directors have seen it all. Like, these guys have been in the industry, or most creative directors have got so much experience behind them that they've seen it all, and they've got great ideas. So my ideas might not be as great as theirs, or vice versa sometimes. So, but a lot of the time we do get free rein to come up with a design and put it across to the client.
We've now bailed on me designing a logo. I was considering doing it in a program that I've designed everything in so far. It's called Pixlr, Pixlr.com. Free. They sometimes save it, but sometimes when they refresh, or you refresh your cache or cookies, it deletes all of your work. So you do have to, it's not super friendly in that respect. I've had to recreate the episode tiles that you see with every episode a handful of times. Luckily, I've got it in a template form, so I can easily do that. What program would you be using to do this logo?
I would be using Adobe Illustrator. It's something I've always created logos in, because it's a vector-based software. And once you've got your design dialed, you can scale it up to whatever size you need. You could use Photoshop for your logo design. I wouldn't recommend it, but it can be done in Photoshop. So those two are the sort of the main pieces of software I'd use for a logo design.
Why is your preference not Photoshop?
Photoshop's more for image manipulation. You know, it's a raster graphics based software or editing software, not like a vector based software like Illustrator. They work differently, and you can probably get a higher quality product out of Illustrator.
Now, I'm using Pixlr. I know how to use Photoshop at a very basic level, and Pixlr, the more advanced option, allows me to use more Photoshop tools. There are some other elements as part of Pixlr, like there's a called Pixlr Express, which is probably more for a layperson. Is there any other programs or apps that might be beneficial for someone starting out?
There are some free pieces of software out there online or cloud-based. Software like Canva is probably one of the biggest ones off the top of my head. I haven't used it personally because I've got access to the Adobe Creative Suite, and which is like an industry standard. But yeah, from what I can see with Pixlr, it looks like you could create a logo from it. I don't know how good the output would be in the end. It's hard for me to say, but it looks like it could be a good start for you.
If there's anyone who wants to get into it, it's probably worth paying for the Adobe Suite to actually get their hands dirty in it. You know, maybe start off with something free like Canva. I also haven't used Canva because I find Pixlr quite nice. And Canva, I've tried it once and found it quite restricting just for my skill level. And we know that skill level is not very high. So it's worth paying for it when you can do it. I learnt on Photoshop back in the day when pirating software was a thing, and it's really bitten us all on the ass because now Adobe's using your creative output as part of their AI training and modeling, and they're stealing all your designs. Is that Adobe doing that? Who cares? I'm going to go on record saying it, and I'm happy to be corrected otherwise.
Just for the record, a lot of designers don't like Canva and they shit can it. Fair enough too, but it could be handy for your application.
Well, Bryan, thank you so much for your time. Sorry for wasting your time in not knowing how to do any of this, but it is good to know that being a graphic designer, or in your case, a visual design unicorn, is not a life for me. But thank you very much for joining me.
No worries. Good luck with your endeavors, and if you need any logos, hit me up.
I assume you're going to make me pay you for it?
Always.
Well, that didn't work out well for me, did it? On to the next job, on to the next career. Any thoughts on what I should get into or want to help out and be interviewed? Hit up workexperiencekid.com.